Welcome in Mad Talk Sports episode 51. We got a Christmas theme going this week, and the title, as you can see to my right, might be your left, but it's White Elephant. That's the theme of today. I got the Packers Santa hat, got to rep two things at once between Santa and Christmas time and the Green Bay Packers. And you know we had to do it. And that is the theme of today. As we've done over the past couple of weeks, the title theme is something that plays its way into the show itself. So usual host Joe coming at you here. And last week, as we went through 51st Dates, episode 50, a big milestone for us, I was starting to get sick, and now I am starting to get over it. So voice may come and go at some point throughout, but we think we're good to go, and we got to get a quick episode in, albeit Christmas week. This second to last episode of the 2023 calendar year, so we gotta get it in. And in episode 51, again, we've got White Elephant, which is, we'll get to the rules later so you understand what we're doing. But beyond that, we do have some things to unpack in the NFL from last week. We do have our usual medalist this time for week 15. Again, the game of the day. We will spend special time looking at the week ahead, not just with our picks. Obviously, we'll do our picks. A strong week. We're back on track, at least straight up. But we're going to take specific looks at all the games that have like direct playoff implications for both teams, not just one team. And we'll go through those games in a little bit more depth before going through, again, the week 16 picks. So still a relatively lean and mean episode here today. Hopefully still looking for about an hour or so as the overall time, but no time to waste. Straight into things, unpacking the last week in the NFL. And specifically, I want to spend time on two teams that are trending in opposite directions. And a few weeks ago, they played each other and we discussed, and funnily enough, the winner of that game is the one trending down, while the loser of that game is the one going straight up. So that's, of course, the Bills and the Eagles. And after that episode, the title of Mad Talk was Eye of the Tiger, where we spent a lot of time on the Eagles. But this time, let's start with the Bills. They are on a surge. Their only loss in their last 4 games is to the Eagles in overtime, which at the time we talked about how that was a good sign for their team with the overall fight that they had, and that there's no quit in these Bills, even with kind of the uncertainty around the coaching staff. Obviously, the changes there. But the Bills are surging. And specifically, I want to talk about why and then what it means. So why, I'm going to do 3 specific reasons. So just talk about change in coaching staff and uncertainty. The change in the offensive coordinator, going from Ken Dorsey to Joe Brady, is a big reason number 1 for their success. And I think there's 2 parts. First of which plays into the next reason for their surge. And that's a balanced attack on offense with the running game and not having to have Josh Allen be Superman every single game, as he obviously wasn't against Dallas. He didn't need to be. And that is a dangerous prospect for a team like that. So that's part of it. But I do also think there is some credit that you have to give to the aspect of uncertainty for the opponents in preparing for the Buffalo Bills and what they bring to the table. I think that gives them a little bit of a spark here, which they obviously needed as they were looking up in the standings, and they still are, but they have now gotten to a spot to where they don't perfectly control their own destiny, but basically can sit relatively comfortably with every W that they stack. So I think that's a huge part of it, is the coaching element and the run game, which we'll get into a little bit later as well. Those are like the 2 like measurable changes. I think the other one is a little bit of desperation, because like we talked about it when it first happened, but the firing of Ken Dorsey was kind of like, this is the last person that McDermott could really throw under the bus. This was the last person that could go before it was his turn. And with that, I think him and I think a lot of the players do sense that like this window could slam shut and we have to take advantage of it. Our peak can't be losing to the Chiefs a couple of times in the playoffs. That's not what your peak needs to be, with a potentially generational talent at quarterback, plus an elite receiver, plus a defense that's been very good. That's not enough. Not even in Buffalo, who's coming off of 20 years of mediocrity or even just bad football, in between the Kelly and Allen eras here. So even despite that, like I think they should be holding themselves to a high standard. So this level of desperation, people are fighting for their jobs. And again, they understand why this matters for the grand scheme of things with the window that they have and that they can be a dangerous team. And that is this surge, they are dangerous. They are 100% a team that if you're one of the top seeds in the AFC, you don't want Buffalo. Not no, you don't want Buffalo. Like obviously, if you run into them in the later round, you run into them in the later round. Like you don't want to run to the Ravens either. You don't want to run into the Chiefs. But Buffalo specifically is just so dangerous as a first round matchup. Like let's say they do get in. Let's say they climb to the 6th seed and they're going at Kansas City. They would not be happy about that. They obviously just lost recently. There'd be a little bit of, wanting to have some revenge factor. So that might be part of it. But I think it's something that they wouldn't be hoping for, obviously. And the other teams like the Dolphins, I think they, of anybody, will be like absolutely not. They still face each other one more time in this calendar year. So that's another team that wouldn't want to face them. And then even a team like the Ravens, it's like, man, do we really worked this hard to get the 2 seed or whatever it might be, and then to match up with Buffalo in the first round, like the AFC's on notice. Now, I'm not saying the Bills are the favorites in the AFC. I still think that belongs to the Ravens. However, they are a dark horse team that can leapfrog teams that are ahead of them in the standings as far as who has the best chance of actually going somewhere this postseason. So the Bills are certainly dangerous. They still have work to be done, but we'll get into their game a little bit later here today when we do our weekly picks. But they have some favorable matchups down the stretch here. So sneaky dangerous. Now, on the flip side of it, so the Eagles side, they are not surging, they are sliding. And with that, I want to do the same thing. So why? They also did a coaching change. I think it was a little late. I think they took a little bit too long into the season to make that change. I think they should have went with Matt Patricia earlier. And there's some politics behind that as to why you can't. Obviously, like they lost Jonathan Gannon to the Cardinals a little late in the game, so they kind of had no choice. They lost their, I believe, I don't know his name, but they lost one of the top assistants for Gannon who went with him. So with that, I think they were a little desperate when bringing in Sean Desai, yeah, bringing him in, and they didn't get a chance to really vet who they wanted and who was going to take this team over the top, over the mountain of where they wanted to climb. So there was a little desperation factor in there. And again, that change in DC is a little late. But that being said, there were some good things with the Matt Patricia defense that we saw on Monday night, despite the loss. And obviously they crumbled at the end, which is not what they were hoping for. But I saw some things to build on. And it's against Drew Lock, so you need to see it again. And we're not going to see it until the playoffs because they go Giants, Cardinals, Giants. So maybe Kyler Murray can put you to the test, or Tommy DeVito, but it was a little late a little late of a decision. Now maybe they can have that wild card to play, similar to how I talked about with the Bills, as far as uncertainty on what they are going to bring to the table. But all in all, that plays right into the next reason for this defense, this team sliding, and it's the defense. It's the defense. Besides the coaching, it's players to some degree too, and specifically the defense as a whole is suspect because they're not getting sacks like they did last year when they did at a historic pace with their elite front seven. We all know that their front seven is insane with Reddick, with Cox, with Carter, with even having Graham still. Like they have a lot of guys. That being said, the back end, despite the big names, has been getting toasted a little bit. And specifically, people have been really picking on James Bradbury, both figuratively and literally. In the game, I believe, against Seattle, he gave up, I want to say, 8 catches and 100 yards. Like, he was getting toasted. But he's also getting picked on social media right now. Some clips coming out of Debo, talking about Debo Samuel, that is, of 49ers, talking about how Slay is respectable, but James Bradbury is suspect, and how he gets toasted. And we're starting to see it. So I wonder how legit that is, and if that's a fluke, or if he's going to get back to what he looked like last year, because last year he looked like a top 10 corner from my estimation. And again, maybe it was the front seven, making life incredibly easy on the back end. But Bradbury has to pick it up. That secondary as a whole. They brought in uh, Kevin Byard to fix the safety position, and he kind of just looks like another guy. Maybe he's just not comfortable, which I do think comfort is a huge thing at safety because it's so much of it is instinct. Yes, you read the field. Yes, you have fundamentals. Yes, you break down a tackle. Yes, you break on the ball. But so much of it is simply instincts in terms of like what separates a great safety from a more average to pretty good one. So maybe it just takes a little bit of time. So they do have a few more weeks here. But the last thing, I don't want to pick always on the defense. I think the offense needs to wear something a little bit here. Specifically, watching the past few weeks, like even during their win streak, the offense is stale. It's stale. And I say that because watching it, and you watch the Manning cast, McCaffrey called out a play that they were going to run, specifically, tight end pulls, they're going to run behind the right guard, and that's concerning that a running back, not even a defender, a running back knows enough of your tendencies that they know what you're going to run. But stale and predictable. Like so often they spam the Jalen Hurts power run game play, and they don't. I think they need to let it air it out a little bit more. Like their run game was very creative with Hurts when they had Shane Steichen. It is not anymore. It is not. Now, the season's not over, but their offense is very concerning. Now, they still have a lot of talent. A.J. Brown is a beast. Devontae Smith is a beast. Dallas Goedert is getting healthy. Obviously, the O-line is probably the best in the game. Jalen Hurts, I still believe in very much so. But it's a little concerning that you're at this point. You've made big swings again with bringing in Kevin Byard, bringing in Shaq Leonard. More on him in a second. I actually have an update for you that I learned recently on my end. But the Eagles have a lot of shakiness going on right now. Now, what does that mean going forward? So they're on a 3-game skid, which isn't the end of the world. Niners had a 3-game skid. Unfortunately, the Eagles is coming at the end of the year where you have less time to patch the holes or put the flex tape on it, like the old flex tape commercials. You got less time for that, but you do still have 3 weeks. And then because the NFC is a little softer, potentially your first playoff matchup could be soft as well, but it also could be a Seahawks team that you just lost to. It could be at Tampa Bay, who you played earlier this year, who is playing a lot better than you right now. So there is reason to be concerned on the Eagles side of things. I think they will be able to step it back up and reach a level that get back to their elite status. Because prior to this 3-game skid, they had beaten the Dolphins, they had beaten the Chiefs, they had beaten the Bills, they had beaten the Cowboys. So they've proven that even with the cracks, they can beat the best teams in the game. Maybe not the 2 best as far as Niners and Ravens, which they'll likely have to run into one of them at some point regardless. But they've proven they can win big against good teams on the road or at home. Now, they haven't proven that they can win big from like a point spread standpoint really over the last 2 years, honestly. Like a lot of close games, especially when playing good teams. Except in the case of getting trounced by the Niners this year in the second time against Dallas. But for the most part, they've proven their armor. So I think they can get back to that. So I'm not writing them off by any means, but they got figured out. They got put together. They got figured out. Now, last point on from an Eagles perspective, not on the Eagles perspective, but Eagles, let's say, subject matter. So Shaq Leonard. And it was always a mystery to me as to why he got released. And I said at the time is I am simply not going to comment on this until I know more. And I never really got the update from the national media. Like, I don't know if you did or if I just have missed it, but I watch a lot of shows. Like I'm a big fan of, What's Right with Nick Wright, First Things First on Fox Sports, or The Herd with Colin Cowherd, or Rich Eisen's show, or what, a lot of shows that I like to watch. I never really got the update that I was waiting for. It was kind of just like, they were like, he's on a new team. Who cares? So Fur, friend of the show. So Fur, he recently started a new job and he works with a Colts fan who's obviously going to be a lot more plugged into the local media, which does have a lot of value. If you didn't know, like local sports radios and giving you the actual takes on teams that the national media is going to miss. But the perspective and the insight we got is that there were a couple of things going into this. So, like, first of which, there was an injury aspect. So last year, Shaq Leonard, we know from a national scale that Shaq Leonard's been missing some time the past couple of seasons, but it was specifically like a nerve injury last year that was of some concern to the Colts, and a little bit of a decline in play, not like drastic, not like he's a bum, but a little bit of a decline in play to the point to where the Colts wanted to get in their other backers, their younger guys who they thought earned that shot. And with that, Shaq Leonard was not a fan of that and started to be kind of a little bit of a problem in their locker room to some degree. Not necessarily saying he's a diva or anything like that, but it was getting to the point where it's like, man, I'm a star. I want to be out there. You guys got these other guys. You're trying to play over me. Like, this needs to be over. So they parted ways. And that was probably the best for both of them in terms of where they wanted to go and what was important to them. And that's a little bit of the insight and the tea that I got on that, which was interesting and makes a lot of sense. And I'm glad it wasn't something more like, bad, like, off the field, bad news or anything along those lines. So now a little bit of information, if you weren't aware on that, it's gone a little bit under the radar. Okay. Now to pivot beyond, let's do our medalists. Let's go back to the good news after talking about the skid of the Eagles. So we're going to do this fast because the next segment may take a little bit of time, and then there is, again, diving into games, and we got basically a playoff game happening here tonight. And I don't look at the score, so my prediction will be genuine. However, Week 15 medalists, bronze medalist, one Sam Laporta, rookie tight end for the Detroit Lions, 3 touchdowns, which was a pleasant surprise. I did not catch much of that game. Carried fantasy owners across the country, myself included, leading me to a playoff victory, bringing me to the Final Four. So shout out Sam Laporta, bronze medalist. Silver medalist, going to another primetime game, and this time on the Monday night side of things, to the victorious Seahawks. And, there's some guys you could say. You could have said Jackson Smith-Njigba, game-winning touchdown. You could say Kenneth Walker, he had an excellent game. You could say Drew Lock leading a touchdown drive, 92 yards. But I went with Julian Love. He had 2 picks, and 2 picks that basically sealed the game. One that flipped the game, and then one that sealed it. And that was an incredible toe tap at the end. I believe he got it. First glance, I was like, no freaking way that he got his 2 feet in, but I think he did. And then the gold medalist is James Cook. I don't have his stats in front of me, but he basically ate the Cowboys for breakfast. And again, we talked about how the balanced attack for the Bills is why they've been able to have this surge, but specifically why they were able to dismantle a good Cowboys team that was surging. So James Cook and Buffalo run game as a whole, but specifically James Cook, someone's got to wear it, be the face to the movement there. So he takes home the gold. So quick medalist, really want to keep our eyes forward this week. Is, again, trying to be lean and mean this week. All right, the game of the day, White Elephant. So for this segment, we're going to go through a variety of coaches and players. Now, if you're familiar with White Elephant, it's a Christmas game. So it's where everyone buys a gift. And let's say you've got 10 players and you've got 10 gifts. No one knows what they are. No one knows, theoretically, no one knows who brought what. And then you get numbers and you draw numbers. And then whoever's first picks a gift first. They have no idea what they're getting. It could be a gag gift. It could be something awesome. It could be like a gift card, or it could be just, it's a blanket, whatever. So it could be anything. It could be alcohol, money, blankets, games, whatever. And basically, as people go and pick more gifts, once you see more of what's out there, you start to trade for it and steal it. It's like, oh, $100 Amazon gift card, I want that. And then when that happens, that person has to go pick again, so on and so forth until the game's over. And you end up with something. You either end up with something with the choices that will go here, and that's something keep. So in the game, that's something you want. Those are the gifts. Those are the gift cards. Those are the alcohol. Those are the, party games, stuff like that. That's actually useful for you. So in this game, the keepers are players and coaches that they're like those good gifts in White Elephant. You want to get those. Those are the ones that you're either going after, you're trying to steal, or you're at least okay with it. It's like, I wanted the Amazon gift card. That was $100, but I got 3 scratch off tickets. Like I'll take that. I'm satisfied with it. So that's the first bucket. The next bucket is the re-gift. So The way I describe this isn't something that's horrible. It's not useless. It's not garbage, but it's also something you are hoping someone steals from you. So maybe it's just a taste thing. Maybe it's like, I got this bubble set for blowing bubbles, and that's useless to me. But a child or a younger individual or someone with children, it could be a little bit more useful for them. So regift is something you're hoping people steal from you. If you do end up with it, you're probably going to give it to someone else anyway, and maybe it's just better off in someone else's hands. So same thing with this game. Players and coaches that perhaps just need a new scenery. Like it's not your style. It's not the style of that city, that organization, their goals where they're at now. So that's the regifts. We got keepers, you got regifts, and then you got the last one, which is the trash. So these are the gag gifts. Which so last year we played this, and I walked away with slippers, and that's fine. Now, I could rock some slippers, but they were lobster slippers. It was a gag gift, and that was something to where it's like, I'm never going to wear those, especially because they were about 4 sizes too small, just totally useless. So that's something to where you leave at the house, those are like going in the closet or, maybe getting thrown away, whatever it is. Those are like funny gifts. So that maybe someone else would have had more use for it. So maybe that would be a regift type of category there. But for this game, these gag gifts, those are the ones you don't want. Like, yeah, it's funny. It's, it's whatever. It's amusing, but these aren't what you're going after in this game. This isn't what you're hoping to get. So those are, simply put, the 3 buckets: keep, regift, trash. So I've got specific coaching categories and then quarterback categories. So we're going to go one at a time. I'm going to say which bucket they fall into and a little bit of why. Not too long, but a little bit. So let's start in the NFC North. From a coaching standpoint, personally, I only think one coach is really a question. And that's really what I did here, is people that I thought were question marks from the general media. So let's start with Matt Eberflus, coach of the Bears. So I put him in the regift category. So I think he's like that thing. It's like, do I really need this? Do I want this? Like, not really. I think what the Bears need right now is an offensive coach. And whether it's to coach up Justin Fields, or whether it's to really foster Caleb Williams or Drake May or whatever happens, I think they need to turn the page to an offensive coach. But I don't think Eberflus is awful. Obviously, he's blown some leads this year. He doesn't have a great record as a head coach, but either way, I think he can be useful somewhere, whether it's back at a DC, defensive coordinator type of a role, or just, a totally new scenery as a head coach. Like, I would say regift. Like, he's not useless in the NFL, but he's not right for the Bears and where they need to go as an organization. So Matt Eberflus, regift, borderline throwaway, or it depends if he's okay stepping back into a coordinator. It's not uncommon for defensive head coaches to become coordinators again. You think Vic Fangio, you think Dan Quinn, like, you can have a lot of success there. So there's nothing wrong with that. Regift. Similar. Let's go to the NFC South this time, and we're going to start with another defensive coach in Dennis Allen, another really great coordinator, at times considered elite defensive coordinator, and now he's the head coach for the Saints. And I'm going to go with the same thing there, regift. So specifically for him, not as head coach. Regift back to a defensive coordinator. You were really good at that. This is your second try at head coach. Not been great either way. Whether you make it in the playoffs or not, I don't think you're the coach to take this Saints team into the deeper part of the 2020s and beyond. So he needs to be regifted as a defense coordinator. It's a very specific one there. So that's one of those gifts where you're like, I know exactly who wants this, so I'm going to kind of like market it like, hey, I know I got this coffee mug. I know you drink a lot of coffee. Like, you want this one. So that's kind of where Dennis Allen sits. Staying in that division, Arthur Smith for the Atlanta Falcons. I thought about the regift route. We're throwing him out. Can he go back to an OC job? No. Maybe. He was a decent OC for Tennessee, but as time goes on, it's like, man, really? This is a team with an offensive coach, with Bijan Robinson, with Tyler Algier, with Drake London and Kyle Pitts and Jonnu Smith. And they got guys. They got Matt Collins, even, if you want to throw him in there. You've got all these weapons, but yet you're carried by your defense, which is mostly from recent additions, even with the loss of Grady Jarrett earlier in the year. So You can't have that as an offensive coach. You cannot be carried by your defense and just simply look, I don't want to say lost, but just misplaced as the head coach. And I think that'll kind of cost him offensive coordinator jobs, at least in the immediate future. So, maybe this is something you got that was just simply like a little bit out of style, something that just doesn't get worn anymore, something along those lines. So Arthur Smith, we're leaving behind. Next one, Ron Rivera. So he's the most successful of the ones we've gone through. He had a really great tenure in Carolina until the end and led them to a Super Bowl, led them to a couple of different divisional championships. And even with Washington, he's had, I believe they made the playoffs once under him as well. So he's had the most success of the ones we've gone through so far. So you could be tempted, but if you remember last year, I said it was time for him to go, and I feel the same way. And I just don't think there's much of a place in the league for him anymore, which is unfortunate because, again, he's got a strong track record, and he seems by all accounts to be like a really great guy, and he's obviously a great story, and he's been able to motivate teams in the past, but for whatever reason, it just ain't working anymore. And I think it's time to go for Ron Rivera. So far, not the greatest set of gifts here to this point, but now we have one that does not belong in White Elephant. This is like the type of gift that when you see it opened, everyone's just like this. Everyone, that's the one they're going for. They're like, I can't believe this is in the game. Example for that, myself, a couple of years back, probably about 6 years ago, like 2017, give or take. Christmas, I get a signed Packer helmet. And it was Ty Montgomery, so not like a superstar or anything, but at the time, he was a promising young player. And that was my gift for White Elephant. And when it got open, older brother, Justin, he's like, are you kidding me? He's like, this doesn't belong in that game. He's like, you should have just gifted it to me straight up. So that's what this person is in terms of our game here today. And that's Mike Tomlin. I think the talk of Tomlin being on the hot seat is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. He's one of the most tenured coaches, obviously, but never had a losing season. I know Pittsburgh fans want more. I know, I get it. You want to be back in the Super Bowl chase. You don't have a Super Bowl roster. You don't have a quarterback right now. You haven't had a quarterback since 2018. Yes, I know Big Ben played 2-3 years after that, but he was not the same. He was shot by the end of things. Without a quarterback in the modern NFL, unless you do everything perfect and you've got an innovative offensive coordinator, you are in significant trouble. So without that being the case, honestly, I think he's been consistently overperforming by pretty much every metric except for playoff victories. And I get it. That's what you want in Pittsburgh. But listen, you move on from Mike Tomlin. You put him in the White Elephant game, about like 25 different teams in the league would open that package up and be lit up like a Christmas tree. So be careful what you wish for, Pittsburgh. You hang on to the treasure that is Mike Tomlin. I've been a Mike Tomlin doubter long ago. Absolutely not. You keep him. And that's one where you get that gift and you kind of like hide it. Like, I hope no one sees that I have this. So Mike Tomlin shouldn't be on this list, but the chatter is there. Next up, not as clear cut and dry on this next one, and that's going to be Robert Saleh. So third season as the head coach of the Jets, and first season they stink. Everyone knew that first season coaching the Jets was going to be tough. Last season they go 7-4. Everyone's like, this is sweet. This is a Cinderella story, and then they collapse. And it seemed to be a little bit of mismanagement of the Zach Wilson situation last year, even kind of eventually starting not even just Mike White, but Streveler. Maybe they should have just rocked with Joe Flacco as he's been balling out here lately. And then this year, this team is obviously just, they're not that good. They can sneak some wins here and there. But again, mismanagement on the quarterback situation. So there's some question marks, but I think Robert Saleh is a keep. He's a keep. It's like, this is one of those gifts that you open and you say, maybe not the best gift that I'm going to find in this group of 10, but I'm pretty sure it's top half. I'm pretty sure it's, third or fourth best out of this 10, and I'm going to hang on to it. I hope I walk away with this one. I'm at least satisfied walking away with it. And hey, maybe it gets better. Maybe it's like those lottery tickets to where over time it just continues to get better, and maybe you win some. You win like $100 or hey, maybe even better. So I think Robert Saleh is a keeper. Staying in that division, so we're going to go with McDermott in the for the Buffalo Bills. This is a hard one because they are surging, but there's some red flags lately. This is one where you're going to have a better answer at the end of the year, but personally, I think this is a regift. I think it's a regift. This is a regift to where a lot of other teams in the league would be thrilled to take it. I just don't think it's right for the Bills. I don't think so. I think he's kind of like that setup guy. Like he gets you to the mountain and then he hands it off to someone else. Or he's like the owner of a company, like a CEO. He can get you to $1 million in revenue, maybe even 50 million, something. But he just can't get you to if you're trying to get enterprise grade, you're stuck and you need someone else to come in, take over and woof. And that's okay. It's hard to build something off the ground, which is what he did in Buffalo. It really is. And it really was impressive. And he deserves a lot of credit for that. However, they're stuck. They're stuck. And unless they go on a magic Cinderella story ride this season, I think they need someone else if they want to truly get to the top. So Sean McDermott, unfortunately, regift. Bill Belichick. I feel the same as I felt about Mike Tomlin. Like, just keep him. And this one, beyond like the coaching side of things, which obviously he's, well regarded by a lot as the GOAT. Personally, I would agree with that. His defenses have been balling out this season, and it gives really good teams a run for their money. They just got to figure out the offense, and I think that takes a quarterback. That takes a more just a more balanced mixture of weapons that aren't so overpaid and so mid, and a better O-line overall. So obviously he's been the one making a lot of those decisions. So maybe he needs to give up that. But as a coach, you have to keep him. Plus the other aspects as far as just letting him break the record for being the winningest coach in NFL history. That's you got to give it to him. He's earned that at the very least. And again, I think it's something to where you'd look back in 10 years and really kick yourself as Patriots fan or as someone in that organization that you exited someone like that from the building. Like, I just don't think you want that. So now we go to the quarterbacks, and one more quarterback than we had coaches. So we're about halfway through the white elephant segment here, but I think it's all making sense. And I think these are some hard ones on the coaching side of things. QBs, we'll see. I think some of these are a little bit easier. So Justin Fields, starting it off again in the NFC North. I think this is a clear regift. Like I think he's proven that he is not bad. Like he's got some special. We obviously know he can run, but I've even seen some good throws over the course of this season, and I've seen some good drives from him as a whole. And obviously, any professional can, flash in the pan, look pretty good for a little while. But for Justin Fields specifically, I think he is kind of like one of those gifts to where like this isn't right for me, but I know there's people out there that could really, really use this. And there are some specific teams that come to mind. For me, I've been really saying the Atlanta Falcons as of late because they're obviously a really good running team over the past couple of years. And if you add a more electric running quarterback who's a little bit better of a decision maker, then maybe you got something there. Maybe he's never going to be like Lamar Jackson level, but he can be effective. And I think that's a regift, and I think that'd be better for all parties. Baker Mayfield. So coming off a perfect passer rating game with the Buccaneers, the first ever to do so in Lambeau. He certainly could have been on the medalist, but I knew I was going to talk about him here, so I was okay with saving it. Baker's a keep. He's a keep. And I don't want to be overreactionary or prisoner of the moment. I'm not saying he's like some top 10 guy or even top 12 or even top 16. I've been pretty steady on always saying Baker's, like he's around the league average, give or take. But for the Bucks, this is someone that you're satisfied with. You're like, I like what we got going on here. Like he can wheel and deal. He's been great for the locker room. And yeah, he's not the elite guy in the league, but he brings a lot of value, and it could be quite a bit worse. So I think this is someone you keep, and I think he still can have some more upside and continue to grow. And he's got some games where like last week where he can be excellent. So that's a keeper. Derek Carr. It's a hard one. You probably know by now that I love Derek Carr. Derek Carr jersey from when he was on the Raiders. I like him. I like his energy. He's had some good seasons. I like what he's about. I don't know if the Saints like him. I really don't. I think he might be a regift again, which is unfortunate. If I were them, I would be keeping him. Like, you're in cap hell. may as well ride out with someone you know is steady until the time is right to pull the trigger elsewhere. But if he's just not the right fit for you, then it's time to move. It's time to move. Someone else could totally use him. So he's at least a regift I would keep. But for the Saints, I think they might be thinking a regift. So this might be someone where I'm in the game and I'm like, they don't seem too happy with that gift. I'm gonna trade for that one, or I'm gonna steal that one, I should say. So Derek Carr, probably a regift. Desmond Ritter, straight to the trash. Don't really need to spend too much time on that one. Daniel Jones, I have made it loud and clear how I feel about him, and I am not changing it. If anything, the performances of Tommy DeVito last week notwithstanding, the previous weeks have just really solidified to me that athletic quarterbacks that you put the training wheels on in New York, anyone can kind of do it. Tyrod was doing pretty well. Daniel Jones was not this year. I'm not a fan, and that's I don't see a lot of systems where he's like, that's who I want. This is one where it's like, I walked away with this. I kind of feel like I came up negative in the game itself with what I finished off. So no, thank you. Sam Howell. So national media has kind of like been a little bit of a yo-yo with him as far as like, is he good? Is he terrible? I personally think he stinks. I think Eric Bieniemy is making him look a lot better than he actually is. I don't mean to be a Grinch in this regard, but I'm Sam Howell. I don't want him. I don't. If I'm the Commanders, I'm like, all right, what other type of move can I make? Or who can I draft? Like, if I walk away with him, is he getting thrown out? No. But is he getting put straight to use? Maybe not. Might be like, I don't know. It might be kind of like a gag gift that you're like, I'm okay with that. Like, yeah, I got some socks that have some joke on it or something like that. So like, yeah, I'm not tossing them, but they're really sticking in the drawer. It's nothing to write home about. So that's how I feel about Sam Howell. Geno Smith. This is one you're okay with. It's like, I walked away with Geno. Could be worse. I could use a blanket, whatever it might be. So it's fine. It's fine. So like Geno, you walk away with that. You're like, all right. We like the vibes and all of that comes with it. Not something you're trying to steal if you're someone else, but you're okay with it. Kenny Pickett. I've had quite the journey on my thoughts towards Kenny Pickett. Thought he was terrible coming into the league. It was mostly, as Drake called me out for it, it was mostly due to the fake slide thing. I thought was cheap. I didn't like that. But then even just like from what scouts are saying, he was just not graded very high. Like I was not big on him coming in. And then, he looked bad to start as far as like his career as a rookie. And then he kind of turned it on down the stretch. Not turned it on, but stopped turning it over. Then he had an excellent preseason. Then I was like, hey, maybe this guy can be okay. No, he's not good. And I understand that the situations have been tough. I just don't think he has what you need to be like a legitimate starting quarterback. Like, can he get another chance? Maybe, like virtue of injury, like a Gardner Minshew or something like that. I think Gardner Minshew's way better. So, for the record, Your Honor, like not comparing them, but he could get another chance, but I just don't think anyone's really wanting it. So I think it's time to move on in some capacity as far as like take the next guy. Mac Jones, and this one's a similar capacity. So there is some school of thought that would say regift. Like we've seen him have a average to above average season in the right situation when he had McDaniels. But everything since then has been awful. It's been awful. Decision making, awful. Accuracy, terrible. Just decision making. I said decision making, but just field vision, even just not good. And attitude, even not great. And now the fact that Zappy steps in again, really for the second year in a row, and looks at least a little bit better than you is really, really damning. So he might go the Sam Darnold route as far as like go be a backup for a team that if you ever did get a shot, you would have a chance to look pretty good. But no one's trying to steal for that gift here. Aiden O'Connell. This is another one where I'm okay walking away with that, I guess. I'm not throwing it out, but I don't think this is I don't think this is the guy. Obviously, they had an excellent game against the Chargers, but I this is one where yeah, I guess keep because again, like you've seen some flashes and you've been better with him, so you keep him around. You don't throw him away, but not something to write home about. So while he is not as good as some of the other re-gifts out there, I think from a situational standpoint, it makes a lot of sense to keep him. So that wraps up White Elephant in that game, which was actually it was actually a fun one. I like that one. Now, again, we're coming up on about the 40-minute mark, so we're really going to focus on the week ahead. So a little bit less on like the gift side of things or Christmas theme, and more so just like getting down to it. So, specifically, before doing the actual picks, I do want to spend actual time on a few games. So, there are a few really big matchups this week between playoff hopefuls in the NFL. And want to go quickly through them. We've got, let's see, I think that's 8 of them. Want to say who has more to prove and who is the X factor. So, won't spend a ton of time on each individual one, but this is where we're going to start. Now, this one I literally won't spend a lot of time on because it'll be redundant. By the time this airs, the game may be over. So this is New Orleans at the Rams, which is the Thursday night game, of course. I think New Orleans has more to prove because I do believe in the Rams and I don't believe in the Saints. Again, I've said it for months now that their offense is extremely disappointing and their defense is a lot more mid than you would hope for with a defensive coach and with a lot of those defense, high caliber defensive players. So they have more to prove, in my opinion. I think the Rams have proven that they're dangerous in the NFC. But my X factor for this matchup is Demario Davis. I think if the Saints are to win this game, they can't let Kyron Williams run all over them, and they can't let the middle of the field be this highway for Puka Nakua and for Cooper Kupp and then Tyler Higbee every now and again, whoever else they want to throw it to. That can't happen. So Demario Davis is an elite level linebacker. He has to play like one for the Saints to really have a chance tonight, in my opinion. So I'll get to my pick a little bit in a couple minutes here regarding them. Next up, Cincinnati at Pittsburgh. So two teams again that are going in the opposite direction. So Cincinnati's trending up, Pittsburgh's trending down. And it's frustrating as I did pick the Steelers last week to come out of their slump. They clearly have more to prove. Like the Bengals are playing with house money. Both are playing with backups. But when you're going from Kenny Pickett to, Mitch Trubisky and Mason Rudolph, that is so much different than going from Joe Burrow to Jake Browning. Even though Jake Browning has looked really good, just when you lose your elite quarterback, usually that's season done. That's season done. So they don't have anything more to prove, in my opinion. It's just all, again, house money. Steelers have more to prove. But the X factor in this game is T. Higgins. Jamar Chase is out. T. Higgins, someone who, again, could have been a medalist this week with that game-winning touchdown that was pretty impressive. And it's not even just the catch, the way he went up and got it, but also the reach. So T. Higgins is the X factor because, again, Chase is out. But I think the ability for the the Bengals to win this game will be dependent on the Jake Browning and the passing game being able to get going. Because if you remember, last time Browning was in, the only loss he has was against these Steelers. So it's not an easy defense to beat, and I think T. Higgins will be critical for being able to do so. Detroit at Minnesota. I think Minnesota obviously has more to prove. Like, can they even get into the playoffs is what they're trying to prove. Tough loss, hard-fought loss against the Bengals last week. Detroit, they can't prove anything to me in this game, in my opinion. Like, I know you can beat up on mid teams. I know that. Like, nothing you do this week is going to, like, bolster my opinion on you. Like, if you lose, like, that's one thing. But if you win, it's like, that's kind of what we thought. X factor, Justin Jefferson. Can he get back to himself, and can he be a game wrecker to where, Nick Mullins makes enough magic against a suspect Lions defense and gives them a run for their money? So that's my X factor for that game. Cleveland at Houston. So I think the obvious X factor is CJ Stroud and the fact of like who's going to play. But before getting to that, I think Houston has more to prove. The Browns are in a much better position, obviously, given that the Texans are on they were able to win last week, but having lost the previous week to the Jets puts them in a tough spot, especially given that CJ Stroud may or may not play. So that's an X factor from a literal standpoint, but from who we know is going to play perspective, I want David Njoku. He's been really balling out the past couple of months here, and that's been excellent to see from like a fantasy owner perspective. Everyone's always wanted Njoku to become that guy, but I think he's very important for this Browns passing game. We know Amari Cooper's a beast. We know Elijah Moore's chemistry with Joe Flacco is good, but it seems like Njoku's is as well. And he's given them another element, which has been important as their run game has regressed a little bit, that they can have those, I don't want to say easy throws, but those, middle of the field type of throws to Njoku. So I think he's the X factor for their offense to be able to keep rolling against a Texans defense that at times is feisty. So Colts at Falcons. I think the Falcons have more to prove because obviously they're on the brink of, even in the NFC South, being out of the playoffs. They are 6-8, hanging on by a thread, and Arthur Smith is coaching for his job. And whether it's Heineke or Ritter, both of them are playing for their jobs as quarterbacks in this league. So I think the X factor, though, is not on their side. It's on the Colts side. So JT coming back, I thought about that, but the run game's been fine no matter who it's been, really. So I went with Michael Pittman. He really makes the passing game go. I believe he's got over 100 catches this year, which is impressive. Josh Downs has been a nice rookie, but they go as Pittman goes, especially with Minshew. It's been a favorite target of him. So Pittman will continue to be their X factor as they continue to try to surge to the playoffs. This is a game they can't drop in that race. 3 to go here. So Jags at Bucks. So, two teams that, again, are in playoff position, winning the respective Souths of each conference. I think the Jags have more to prove, honestly. Even though I think they're the better team between the two, the Jags have higher hopes than the Bucks do. The Bucks are playing on house money. This was a clean up the cap year, and, Baker, why not? No one else taking him. We'll take him. So I think the Jags have more to prove, especially with their skid, especially with recent struggles with Trevor Lawrence, the recent injuries. So uncertainty regarding if Trevor Lawrence will be a full, healthy, good to go, but he's played pretty much every game in his adult life, so I expect him to play. But the X factor then is Travis Etienne. Can they get the run game going to where even if Trevor does play, and I, again, expect him to, even if he does, you need to give him some help. This run game needs to be, the run game needs to be what carries you in this game. The Bucs run defense is not as stout as it once was. Not that they're rollovers, but Travis Etienne needs to have a really good game in the run game, but also be a threat in the pass attack as well. So I think he is the X factor there. Dallas and Miami. I think Miami has more to prove because Dallas has at least shown that they can beat good teams. They beat the Eagles, they beat the Seahawks, they beat the Rams. Like, not world beaters, but maybe Philly. It depends on how you fall with them. But they've had some respectable wins. While the Dolphins' best win is record-wise, it's the Broncos, who are 7-7, and at the time were not good. And obviously, they put up 70 on them. But the Dolphins have more to prove. This is a really good opportunity for them. I believe they should be at full strength on the offensive side, bringing back Tyreek Hill. So this is a game where they have a lot to prove if they want to, really show that they are with the elite class of the league as far as competing for a Super Bowl. Now, the last game, the big ticket game that we'll be playing prime time on Christmas Day. What a treat. Baltimore at San Francisco. We'll get more into that later. Baltimore has more to prove. And I got Roquan. Nah, I can't point the right way on this. This flip screen always gets me a little bit. There we go. So Roquan Smith is the X factor here. They have more to prove because San Francisco has proven that they can beat the doors off of pretty much anybody in the league that they play. So I know that they are excellent, and I know that when they are fully good to go, that they are damn hard to stop. The only way you're going to stop them, Baltimore, is if you can shut it down. If Roquan and company can wreak havoc for the run game to where all of a sudden you're able to get some pressure on Purdy and make him a little uncomfortable, maybe you got a chance to show something, because it's not really, no team has really done it when they've been at full strength. There are 3 losses when they were without Debo or Trent Williams, or when McCaffrey missed like half a game or whatever it was. So when at full strength, they've just been almost unbeatable. So the Ravens have more to prove. The Niners, like, this would show a lot to me personally, like if they were to win this game, but to most people it wouldn't. And the Ravens, this would show that they are truly legit. I think that's already solved, but I don't think the general media necessarily agrees with that. We'll get to that pick later, but that's the little of like, who's got more to prove and why, and who's going to play a factor in that. So now, as we approach 50 minutes, that gives us enough time to wrap up with our weekly picks. So let me just pull up the record from last week. Is again, we got back on track, which was much needed. Very, very happy that we did so after two losing weeks in a row straight up for the first time all season. Followed it up with an 11-5 record. So definitely happy on that side of things. Now, on the flip side, against the spread, we are not happy, but we stopped the bleeding. So we were coming off two bad weeks, specifically our worst week of the year against the spread. And last week, we damn near broke even. We went 7-8-1, still 11 games above 500 on against the spread. So still doing quite well. So that's, I think we're just we're another really strong week away from bringing it all in. But that's the setup for week 16 picks. We're back, baby. And now it's time to make some real money with this. So the game that's happening tonight, again, have not checked the score as I never do. So Saints at Rams. Rams are favored by 4.5. I always, as you know, pick the score before looking at the spreads so that I'm not influenced by the Vegas voodoo, though I am pretty damn good at guessing the spread, which I did this week as well. I should have tracked it so I could do it live. But I picked the Rams 24-20, which means they win, but the Saints cover. So again, one of those examples where I'm hedging my bet, which has not worked out a ton this year. It's not something I recommend. Rams are currently up 10-0, so we like our straight up pick. We'll see how things look against the spread as the game goes on. So that's first game. Second game, Cincinnati at Pittsburgh. The Bengals are favored by 1.5 at the Steelers, who again won the last matchup. Admittedly, I made this pick before learning that Mason Rudolph is expected to start. However, I am going to roll with it, and I'm taking the Steelers again, 20-17. Very similar logic to what I had last week, to where it feels like this is when they win a game they're not supposed to. So I believe the Steelers can take this one 20-17. Got them on the upset. Very close point differential, obviously, but I think it's real that the last time that they played Jake Browning, that they were able to get him. I think they can get him again just on the shoulders of their defense. So one of those games where I think each team is kind of due in some regard. Upset. So first upset of the week. Next game, the surging Bills are 12.5 point favorites at the LA Chargers, who will probably have Easton Stick, maybe Will Greer. Either way, it's roll Buffalo. I got the Bills 38-17, so covering the spread pretty easily. And if we know anything about the Bills, is they when they win against bad teams, they win pretty big. So I feel pretty great about that pick. Washington at the Jets. Jets are 3-point favorites at home, which basically means Vegas thinks this is a wash. And see, home field advantage plays a part. I got the Commanders coming in and winning 24-20. I think the Aaron Rodgers likely being done for the season thing is a little deflating for this Jets team. And obviously last week they were awful. And I think that Washington can make enough plays to where they can score enough points against these Jets that, obviously just kind of seem a little toothless on offense most of the time. So that's the second upset of the week and got the Commanders winning outright. Next up, Lions at Vikings. Lions favored by 3 on the road. I do have the Lions winning 23-17. I think the Vikings defense can give them some trouble, but I don't think they can score enough to really take this game. So can be sneaky competitive, but personally, I think the Lions win and they cover. The Browns at the Texans. So again, uncertainty here. If I knew CJ Stroud was playing, I think I would pick the Texans, but I'm gonna roll with the favorites. I'm gonna take the Browns. Browns a 26-20 win. While I do think they are due to some degree for a loss, they are rolling, and I think that they can continue to make those plays. And I think they really have something going in that locker room. So I do have the Browns, albeit not my most confident pick of the week. Next up, the Packers at the Panthers. Packers 4.5 point favorites on the road in Carolina. So, full disclosure, I am, 3-11 in picking Packer games. And you might think, well, you always pick Packer games, obviously. And they've won 6 games. But if you recall, the 3-game win streak the Packers had recently, I picked against them. First, in legitimately thinking that the Chargers would be able to beat them against, being able to torch the Packers defense. And then doing it to more of like, okay, maybe this is something. And then it worked again. And it was like, this is really something. And then I was like, all right, we're on the Giants. I feel safe. So I was tempted to not pick them, but I can't in good faith do that against the Panthers. That being said, I do think the Panthers can be a little feisty as the Packers defense is certainly suspect. I do have the Packers winning and covering 27-17, but I would not be shocked if this was Bryce Young's breakout career game to some degree. But the Packers should either way still win. Even in losses, the Packers offense has, or at least last week, the offense was fine. And the week before, the offense had some good flashes as well. Seattle at Tennessee. Seattle 2.5-point favorites on the road. Not sure who the starting quarterback's going to be. Not sure if they know either. I'm going with the Titans. Titans with the upset, straight up winning 30-20. I feel like the Titans have just been so feisty down the stretch this year. Like obviously they're out of the playoffs, but when you've got a team that has a rookie quarterback still like trying to prove himself, you've got a great coach in Mike Vrabel. You've got established veterans who like, Henry and Hopkins, who don't know how much time they have left in this league at their peak, like, or close to their peak. And like Hopkins' case, for instance, like, they tend to ball out in some of these types of games. So I got the Titans. This third upset of the week to this point. We're on a string of them here. Next up, we've got Colts at Falcons. Falcons 1.5-point favorites at home. I'm not sure why. Colts get Jonathan Taylor back. Colts win the game 23-20. Close game. So another upset. That's the fourth now. And, spread's really close there. So I feel good on the Colts side of it. And again, they're rolling. Jags at Bucks, battle in Florida, and it's again in Tampa Bay. 1.5-point favorites at home. Another really, really tight spread here, and we're on a streak of them coming up. Jags have more to prove, and I think they win the game, and that would be really important for them. And it would hurt the Bucks a little bit. They'd survive, but I've got the Jags winning 27-24. Another straight up upset. Jags make me a little nervous, but I think they need a get right game in this. Not necessarily get right, but it would get them right to win against a feisty Bucks team. Now we're getting to some of the big ticket items, at least briefly before we go into some toilet bowls. We've got the Cowboys at the Dolphins, 1.5-point favorites again for the home team. In this case, being Miami. Tough game. And I don't recall had I said their X factor earlier, but it was Jonathan Hankins, defensive tackle. He was out last week against Buffalo. A big reason they got ran on pretty well. He should be back this week. And I think that's important. I think Dallas will focus on limiting the run game of the Dolphins and then letting their good corners like really play physical with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and company for the Dolphins, and let Micah Parsons and Demarcus Lawrence go eat in the pass rush. So I think it'll be a good game. I think it'll be entertaining and pretty decently scoring, but also these defenses are both, they've got some good aspects. The Dolphins actually, I believe they lead the league in sacks since week 5, but I've got the Cowboys 31-24. So they're dogs, got them winning outright. Next up, we've got Cardinals at Bears. Bears 4.5-point favorites. It's a hard one as far as like point total and whatnot. I do have the Bears winning 23-20 in a bit of a nail biter. So again, threading the needle, picking the favorite to win straight up, but having the dogs cover the spread. So that, again, don't always feel great when threading the needle there, but that was the score that came to me. So I got the Bears taking that one, getting a nice W down the stretch here to feel better about their season. Easy to do when you don't control your own best pick and you know that the Panthers will keep making it better for you. Patriots at Broncos. Broncos are 6.5-point favorites at home. I do believe they win. They get back on track. I don't think the Sean yelling at Russell Wilson thing is that big of a deal, personally. Broncos 24-10. The offense struggles at times, but the Patriots struggle to score more than 10 points anyways. So 24-10, Broncos win and cover pretty easily. So Raiders at Chiefs. Chiefs are 10-point favorites at home. I've got them winning by a similar score as last week, 28-17. So barely covering the spread. And to be totally honest, I originally picked 27-17 and saw the spread was 10. And I said, nope, not doing that again. So upped it a point, said they'll cover. Raiders are feisty, but I think the Chiefs understand that they need to be winning these games and hoping that the people in front of them slip up. Giants at Eagles. Eagles 11.5-point favorites despite being on a 3-game losing streak, and that just goes to show the level of dominance that they've had over the Giants, under the Sirianni regime. I do have the Eagles winning and covering 31-17. I don't think it'll be just a massive blowout, but I don't think it'll ever be extremely close. Now, game of the week, Baltimore at San Francisco. San Fran, 5.5-point favorites at home. So San Fran, the betting favorite right now for the Super Bowl. The Ravens, my preseason pick for the Super Bowl. We all know how much I love the Ravens right now, but I'm taking the Niners at home. And score I got is 24-20 So I am hedging my bet. I am rooting for the Ravens with all cards on the table. However, the Niners are the more healthy team. The Ravens are obviously without Mark Andrews. They just lost Mitchell for the season. So those can slow down the offense to some degree. I think their defense can make life hard on the Niners. But the Niners right now, at least, are the best team in football. Now, the Ravens are the type of team that can punch them in the mouth and make life hard for them. But given that it's in San Francisco too, and Baltimore is coming across the country, it could be one where it's not as tough as everyone was hoping or thought it would be. But personally, I think it'll be a nice, good, hard-fought game, Super Bowl preview type of game. So I got the Niners 24-20. So that wraps the picks on this week, and that's also the last segment on today, which is again episode 51, White Elephant. So I've been pretty good about staying on the 1 hour mark here as of late. A little bit easier when it's myself versus when it's me and Drake or me and Drake and guests or whatever it might be. But that's gonna be a wrap on episode 51. Thank you everyone for joining in. Always make sure to check us out. Like message I got every week. Make sure to check us out on Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube, all at Mad Talk Sports. Wishing you all a happy holiday season, and you will see us again. You see me again, and then hopefully some more company next week.